you. Hello. I'm glad there's people here. Good afternoon. All right, well, I'm Brian Solis, the head of global innovation at ServiceNow. Thank you for being here. I am such a Disney geek. I am so excited that we're going to Epcot tonight. Are you all going? All right. The first round is not on me, but I will see you there, as they call it, the adult Disneyland. I am inspired, though, by the work of Walt Disney. He once said, if you can dream it, you can do it. And he also said it's kind of fun to do the impossible. And I kind of feel like that's where we're at right now. No doubt you've seen Gartner's trends for 2025. No doubt you've been talking about AI probably all day today and all year. But this moment is so much more important than the technology. As you heard, I just wrote a book called Mind Shift. And if you're free after this, please stop by the ServiceNow booth where we will have a book signing. Thank you to the team for bringing books for the folks here. This is a moment of mind-shifting innovation, not just technological innovation. And nothing really says innovation like a safe harbor statement or PowerPoint slides. Am I right? But thankfully, this screen makes it look very fancy. So in my time before ServiceNow, I was also an analyst. I studied digital transformation. I studied corporate innovation. I used to help startups go to market. I used to help enterprise companies transform. And one of the things that I learned in my research and in my time and in my work, during the years of digital transformation, there was very little transformation taking place. In fact, this Gartner stat found that only 19% of boards reported making progress toward achieving digital transformation goals. And if you look at the breakdown in spending, we saw a lot of digitization. We saw enablement and then the optimization of that enablement. And so in a sense, we were taking yesterday's processes, yesterday's systems, and digitizing them to be faster, more scalable, more efficient. But that wasn't necessarily transformation. And so as a result, our digitization created a cost center scenario, a cost center mentality. Most of the CIOs and IT and technology leaders that I work with are responsible for taking out anywhere between 3 and 10% every year. And as Apple's Johnny Ive once said, you can't cut your way toward innovation, yet that's exactly what this moment is asking of us as individuals, as professionals, but also as organizations. And so as we think about then the investments that we're making to take out costs, who creates the value within the organization? If not us, then who? Aside from sales and, of course, product. I was speaking with a CIO recently who said, the most interesting challenge that she had faced was that she was being measured by cost takeout, yet her investments, for example, in customer service or at HR, were going to have direct productivity benefits, actual value statements that she couldn't realize. And said, why am I taking it out of my budget when it's benefiting that org? So when I think about it, in the work that we do with customers every day, we ask ourselves, what are we actually trying to do? Are we trying to make yesterday better today? Or could we make tomorrow also different and better? And it's a fundamental question that we have to propose not only to ourselves, but to those we work with. Are we making decisions? Are we measuring the things that keep us at status quo, but faster, better, more efficient, more productive, more scalable? Or do we explore, especially in an era of artificial intelligence, the unknown. Because innovation lies on the other side of exploring the unknown. The thing is that if you're waiting for someone to tell you what to do, you're on the wrong side of innovation. There is no playbook for right now. Any Gartner analyst will tell you that as they're exploring opportunities with companies and with vendors, we're all trying to figure it out. We're trying to help one another imagine a different way forward. Otherwise, we're going to do the equivalent in an era of AI like we did during the era of digitization versus. There's a little video to kind of get us thinking.
Guys, I've invented this camera that doesn't need any film. Steve, what the why did you do that? What? Oh, because we sell most of the world's film. Yeah. Oh my God, I didn't even think of that. Just hide it. We'll put a patent on it, but just don't tell anyone about it. Hey guys, I've got a new version of that filmless camera. You want to see it? Steve! Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I just want to say, we are killing it. That disposable camera idea was really good. We're the 4th most valuable company in the world. Geez, those digital cameras are getting pretty popular. You know, shut up, Steve. Tried to tell you. We should probably file for bankruptcy, hey? That was a good run.
The Kodak moment is now something totally different. And I believe that we face an opportunity to essentially invest in ourselves toward a new era of business transformation. Anybody used to shop here? I had the opportunity to work with Mark Randolph in a few weeks. He's one of the co-founders of Netflix. And he tells the story of how they shopped themselves to Blockbuster at one point in their early days, tried to sell the company to Blockbuster for $50 million. Could you imagine? And he said that they got laughed out of the room. Could you imagine, though, in a world in which Blockbuster did acquire Netflix? They both would be out of business. And the reason is that you're taking yesterday's leadership, yesterday's mindset, and trying to manage something so new and different that you don't know what you don't know. And when we hold innovation towards yesterday's status, yesterday's mindset, yesterday's measures, then we cannot actually unlock its fullest potential. And that's where I believe we are today. And the difference between innovation and, say, digitization, innovation and, say, automation, is that innovation, in its purest definition, creates new value. Something we didn't do yesterday that creates new value today. And the paradox of innovation today for most organizations is that companies are actually designed to be bad at innovation. The models that we have inherited over the decades are rigid. They're scalable. They're meant to increase profit, take out costs, all the good things that make a business successful, to go against the very nature and structure of an organization. And yet, here we are. Every example of disruption requires us to figure out how do we use new technology, not just to make yesterday better, but to do what we couldn't do yesterday tomorrow. This is a fun stat. In 2023, CEOs used the words generative AI almost 35,000 times in earnings calls, meaning that the C-suite is leaning in, as you all know, like no other technology before. And if you talk to a CEO, they will say that they are either ambivalent or outright dissatisfied with their generative AI progress so far. And that half of leaders struggle to estimate or demonstrate the value of AI. No amount of cutting will unlock innovation. And when we limit the conversation of generative AI or AI to cost cutting, we get headlines like this in The Economist. What happened to the artificial intelligence revolution? So far, the technology has had almost no economic impact. We're not going to make an economic impact if we're simply having cost-cutting conversations. So when I sit with CEOs, they'll say that I want to see ROI. We didn't see that ROI out of our digital transformation efforts, and I want to see that ROI in 3 to 5 years. I want to see it boosting profits in the next year. Placing these types of demands, carrying these types of expectations, I don't think is fair for any one of us. Because now we're having to explore a realm of which our entire organization hasn't necessarily been measured in terms of its success. Definitely hasn't been funded in that direction. So it's up to us to change the perspective. It's up to us to help executives gain the type of shift in mindset that helps them see these times differently. So I came up in Silicon Valley. Everybody knows who Vinod Khosla is in Silicon Valley, but for those who don't know, he's one of the most prolific, successful venture capitalists in the world. And he recently posted this on X, because you can't say tweeted anymore, which just doesn't feel right. But he said most businesses have no clue what is about to hit them in the next 10 years when most rules of engagement. And he followed that on by saying only 200 or 300 people in the entire world understand what's about to change. And I saw that. Of course, it stopped me in my tracks. I said, how can you just post something so ominous like this, so threatening like this, without giving us any clue about how you see the rules of engagement changing? And I realized if you're waiting for someone to tell you what to do, you're on the wrong side of innovation. You're on the wrong side of transformation. What he's telling us is that we got to figure that part out for ourselves. How are the rules of engagement going to change for your employees, for your customers, for your customers' customers? Because going through that mental exercise helps us understand what we need to do differently now to change tomorrow. Because you can't run tomorrow's businesses with yesterday's talent, and you can't plug tomorrow's talent into yesterday's operating model. So the companies that are starting to explore how the rules of engagement are changing and not just focus on cost takeout or cost control, but focus on growth, focusing on creating net new value, are already starting to outperform their peers. The rate of change is not going to slow down. In fact, it's only going to speed up. If you look at every technological wave in the past 30 years, that has been the case. They're exponentially faster and exponentially bigger. I don't believe an AI strategy starts with AI, because AI can change the things that change the things. And it's those rules of engagement. It's how those things will change that starts the strategy. I just finished a book called The Creative Act by a legendary producer named Rick Rubin. And if you don't know who Rick Rubin is, he started a company called Def Jam Records. He helped found the Beastie Boys. He has helped every major artist from the Red Hot Chili Peppers to Johnny Cash transform their sound and transform their brands. And in this book, there was one passage that struck out. It said, "Beware of the assumption that the way you work is the best way simply because it's the way you've done it before." When I read that, I stopped for a moment and I said, wow, the companies that I work with, going back to the days of digitization and digital transformation, and now to the days of automation, we are making the assumption that the way that we work is the best way, which is why we're digitizing that, and now why we're automating that digitization. The question we should ask is, how are the rules of engagement going to change? And what does that look like, for example, in 2030? And is this the right way to work to get us to 2030? Or is this an opportunity for us as leaders, as technological leaders, to use that as a catalyst to change the narrative? To change how we talk about this moment, not about the technology, but about this moment, and then what we can do with technology, what we can do with artificial intelligence, what we can do with all of these incredible new computing opportunities before us to create value, where we're not measured just by cost takeout, but how much we can help the organization innovate and create new value. So now what it leads us to is an opportunity to sit at the table and start having conversations about business transformation. How does our business address opportunities for the future rules of engagement so that we can start making investments now to not be the blockbuster or to not be the Kodak of 2030, 2035, 2040? What if we became the value creator, not just the cost center, but a growth center? The good news is that you're not alone. We're all here together to learn. We're all here together to tell our stories, to ask questions, to explore possibilities. I spent the last year with our research team working on an AI maturity model and trying to understand where every company was across a series of pillars, from, as you heard earlier today, governance to leadership to talent, skills, to responsible AI, to measures. And what we found is that most companies were on the left of that model, so mostly in evaluating and experimenting. We published this thing called the AI Index. It's free to download. We found that out of a score of 100, most companies scored a 44. But in almost every circumstance, most companies thought they were further along to the right of the model. Led to a lot of humbling conversations. But what we found is that there was a small percentage of what we had called AI pace setters. And those pace setters were stronger in leadership. CEOs were leaning in, that there was a vision for what AI transformation could look like, that they were changing how they work, not making those assumptions. They were investing in talent, and they were making investments in growth, not just cost takeout. And some of the things that stood out with these pace setters is that they were actually looking at initiatives that were driving revenue growth, improved competitive positioning, the ability to innovate faster. Those things higher than cost reduction, and not for those regulated companies out there, but higher than risk management. 80% of AI pace setters are already realizing positive ROI. One of the things that I've learned when I work with C-suites is that ROI doesn't always stand for return on investment. It can also stand for return on ignorance, which is, what is the cost of us not doing these things? Well, we know the Kodak story, because these things have opportunity cost associated with them as well. The economic phenomenon that shows if we choose to continue on a path of business as usual, focus on cost takeout, that eventually other companies are going to surpass us that focus on growth because AI becomes exponential in its ability to generate outcomes, in its performance. So I believe this is that moment where you believe you are the leader that you're looking for, that you do have an idea of where you can go, and that that idea counts just as much as others making decisions that we don't believe we're equal to. And I want to share with you something that I learned in all of the years of innovation that I've worked in, and why I'm focusing on mindset right now, is that most leaders that I work with, they know what they know, and they lean on that. Their successes, their failures, their achievements, this is their governing body. This is where their confidence comes from. This is where that gut instinct comes from. And then on the outside of that is what they know they don't know. And this is their guardrails. And these two things create their comfort zone. But for decisions about innovation, these two things also represent the cognitive biases that get in the way of seeing possibilities. AI transformation, business transformation operates in this outer realm. What you don't know, you don't know. And for those who have heard this before, this is actually a Rumsfeld quote. Possibility and innovation exist in this outer realm. And right now, the Walt Disney inside of us needs to explore, needs to imagine, needs to be curious and ask different questions and feel safe in doing so, to feel safe in not having the answers in order to be able to. Because doing this, taking small steps in this direction, actually brings clarity in this realm of unknown. Actually brings confidence in an era of uncertainty. And all innovators who define what comes next will find a strange sense of comfort exploring this outer realm. Because we're just getting started. This is OpenAI's 5 stages of AI's evolution towards artificial general intelligence, or AGI. And every single one of these waves is going to bring something new. According to OpenAI, we're just at level 2. Well, actually, we're not even at level 2 yet. We're approaching it, according to OpenAI, which is why they released their O1 model, which is touted to have reasoning skills. But on level 3, once we get there in full force, we'll be in a full-on agentic enterprise. For those who want to get a copy of this deck, I'll make sure that Gartner sends it to you. But one of the things that I wanted to put down here in slides was to think about our cost takeout and our cost control as iteration, and our growth, our exploration as innovation or potential innovation. Innovation isn't just about the outcomes, it's also about the new ways of thinking, the new ways of working. So on one side, you have the iterative AI, which supercharges work, right? Makes us faster, better, takes out the routine tasks. But innovative AI is where the new results emerge, where we create new value. And it is the innovative AI investments that will disrupt business models and entire industries. And that's the one that I feel like it becomes a gift. Disruption is either a gift you're willing to receive or a gift you're willing to give others, because it's going to happen one way or the other. And so what that looks like moving forward is a balance then, a portfolio, a roadmap of automation plus augmentation. So let's go back to Vinod Khosla's quote about how the rules of engagement are going to change. When I talk to companies who tout how much time they're saving people, or how many steps they're saving, or how much money they're saving as a result of their investments in AI, I ask, so what did you do about it? What did you do with all that freed up hours? What did you do with all that freed up mind space? And I don't really get answers other than, well, we're exploring further cost-cutting measures. But what if you empowered people with that gift of time or the gift of these new tools to do something more exponential than they did yesterday? To be more creative, to explore new ideas, to give them new skills, because this is where growth comes in. And it also sets the stage for an agentic enterprise where agents will then perform tasks, learn and improve those tasks, further freeing up time and making us the orchestrators or the conductors of are focused, just like they were focused on digitization during the digital transformation years. And that creates this linear growth path. And we need that. Augmentation, or innovative AI investments, the game-changing use cases, create exponential growth. And this is where the magic of this opportunity comes to life. Because the delta between those two, if you focus on just one, is disruption. This is how we change the narrative. The way Gartner describes it is, think about your iteration and your innovation in 3 buckets. One is, where can you get the quick wins? I was working with a company recently who said that they have more pilots than American Airlines. I said, I'm going to steal that one. Then look at, and this is in parallel, what are the differentiated use cases that you can focus on iteratively and also through innovation? Because this is where you start to edge towards that exponential outcome. And then the one that really cinches it are, what are those transformational initiatives? How do you change the future of your work by 2030 to 2035? So we don't just have to measure things from a traditional technological perspective anymore. We are now the use case for business transformation and or business acceleration. I always say, like, the best way forward is to speak the language of the C-suite. Speak the language of business. Maybe pause the words IT and technology and focus on business problems and opportunities and partnerships and collaboration. Everything I learned about working with C-suites when it comes to technology and investments, I learned from venture capitalists and founders. And I watched the way that they used language. I watched the way that they pitch when they're trying to receive money from markets that don't exist, and how they pitch venture capitalists on how they're going to generate not just 10% growth, but 1,000 at least percent growth. We adopt the language not as transformation or automation, but instead of business acceleration, that we're the catalysts for that innovation. And so I'll leave you with this. Great leaders not only challenge the status quo, but they inspire and support people, not just technology, by focusing on the uncertainty. What I don't know, the anxiety that comes with it, and the fear that moving into these unknown territories creates. That's leadership, and leadership can come from anywhere. And in an era of artificial intelligence, in an era of rapid technological advancement, who better than you to lead that way forward? And before I leave, I'll get in trouble if I don't say this. From 4:30 to 5:30, we're going to be giving away the book Mind Shift, so please stop by. I'll sign it if you wanted to value the book. But thank you, and believe that this moment is your moment. Thank you.